Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, misery bots of all ages, back again with another video. This time we are reacting to Brian F video in regards to the 2KO situation with the layoffs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get into this video. It's called the Brian F 2KO What Went Wrong with Riot's League of Legends fighting games. From what I could tell, he literally like goes through and like breaks down everything from the layoffs to origins of a decade ago to Riot's games acquiring Rise to the Project L to it becoming a 2v2 fighting game, to it becoming 2XKO, hands-on comparisons, the tag fighting. Like he really seems to be going into everything, the beta, all of that stuff. So I just want to go in, maybe give my 2 cents on things that he's saying, and just have a fun time, man. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get into the video.
Account saying an update on 2XKO. And if you pulled up this announcement, you saw from the producer of 2XKO themselves, Tom Cannon, that they are actually going to be downsizing the team, laying off 50% of the dev team. And they say here, after a lot of discussion and reflection, we are reducing the size of the 2XKO team. With a smaller focused team, we're going to dig in and make key improvements to the game, including some of the things we've already heard you asking for. We'll share some of our plans soon. So they try to let you know that the dev team is definitely decreasing in size, but they go on to say that they're not, ending 2XKO. It's not immediately reaching end of service right now, immediately after it finally fully released with a 1.0 version. But it does not build confidence going into this game that actually was finally in the hands of a large portion of the player base for the very first time just 3 weeks ago. But if you're hearing this news now, your first thought might be, what the hell is a 2XKO?
Now we did know about a lot of that stuff in regards to
of this game,
the game going in and
said, wait,
getting layoffs and stuff like that,
Riot,
them laying off them out.
game?
Now there has been some new development where some of these people that got laid off with like 30 minutes notice.
A few hours,
like they only got like 30 minutes notice. They didn't really get much notice at all.
And they're going here. Riot Games is the best company of all time. League of Legends, pioneer game in esports and modern culture. TFT, best strategy game of all time. Valorant, best shooter of all time. Arcane, best animated show of all time. Riftbound, best card game of all time. He's signing off on this, glazing everything Riot's ever put out. Except he doesn't even know that Riot had already released a fighting game called 2XKO. Literally, even Riot's biggest glazer does not know that Riot had a fully fledged released fighting game for consoles and PC.
That's good.
Only Smoke here talking to Incross. The amount of people saying that they just found out 2XKO release upon reading today's news says it all. And then they say, me telling my FPS friends about 2XKO and them asking, what's that? Lol. I tell them it's a fighting game with league characters, and they say, wait, that sounds fire. Maybe they should have named something else. So,
like, I agree, the name 2XKO kind of sucks, but I have to admit, like, the marketing for 2XKO was kind of bad upon its release. Like, not a lot of people knew that it released. In fact, like, I actually did a video, was 2XKO dead on arrival, because it was like a good 2 days after 2XKO came out, and there was like no reviews out on it, dude. I did a video, it was 2 days after the 2XKO game came out, and there was no reviews at all. Like, nobody was talking about that game, dude. I was like the only one of the very few people talking about 2XKO. So, like, yeah, like the marketing around it was really bad, and the name has always been pretty bad. I don't know why they called it 2XKO. That's a terrible name. They should have called it League of Legends Fighter or some shit like that.
Quite some time, and it's actually already on its way out. 3 weeks after launch. But if you want to have the full breakdown, we actually go further into detail about this on the podcast. I'm going to give a quick little plug. Trash Talk is the YouTube channel. We have a show in there, Extra Trashy. Tomorrow on Wednesday, there will be a full length episode on there, long form content discussing this development, the future of 2XKO, and our predictions with my co-host Idom. So if you want to check out the long form, you can head over to Trash Talk FGC. But let's get back to the video here today. So let's bring you all the way back to 2015. Go back a decade with me.
So this is the video right here. I'm gonna link it into the descriptions below, where I basically talk about how 2XKO is basically dead on arrival. Now, this video came out 3 weeks ago. It came out 3 weeks ago. And I say what's going on with 2XKO, and that's because when you look up like reviews, like when you search reviews at that time, like there was no reviews. You had like this one review site, but everything else was from like months ago and stuff like that. So the game had gotten an official release, but there was like no reviews for it. Now I'll link this video in the descriptions below for anybody who wants to check it out.
And let's check out a little game called Rising Thunder. This game was a small indie prototype alpha title, which featured a 1v1 game with a handful of characters with these Rock'em Sock'em robot-inspired characters that was a easy to pick up, easy to follow indie fighting game. And the big thing about this that made it very unique for the time was that it did not use motion controls, meaning you activated your specials sort of like in Smash Brothers. You held a direction and pressed a special button. But beyond that, what was unique about these controls is that they were on cooldowns, something very similar and familiar to people who use or play League of Legends. Yeah, the special moves had a cooldown mechanic, which was like the very unique thing. So this kind of caught the eye of a lot of different members of the fighting game community at the time, and kind of caught wind a bit more than you would see for indie fighting games at this era. And that was for no fluke, really, because this game was developed by some of the biggest members of the fighting game community, some of the most important and prominent members of the fighting game community. So we have on the left the Cannon brothers, Tom and Tony Cannon, and they were as founding members of the studio that produced this title, and they're incredibly important to the history of the fighting game community.
They look familiar, but I don't remember what they did.
That you play to this day. They developed themselves GGPO, the Rollback Network SDK.
Okay.
GGPO is
they created rollback
netcode, which is the basis for every major fighting game title today.
So basically, they're the reasons why we're able to play fighting games online and it be so smooth.
To GGPO technology. Yeah. This enabled online play.
I do remember them now.
Two opponents in a much more lag-free environment, because rather than just delaying the inputs for the game, introducing input delay to make up for the latency between two players, it also featured rollback mechanics, which would actually roll back and synchronize the state between two separate clients to keep things in time, so that you can allow the clients to be out of sync, not introduce input delay, and just roll back and predict the state of the game and allow for a much more seamless online experience. Prior to GGPO and rollback netcode,
yes, the internet sucked.
Was ass, and that
yes,
was part
it was really bad.
You actually had to physically meet up with people, either play in arcades,
and that's why like tournaments was so big and popular, because you had to show up to a tournament. Like these online tournaments couldn't have been possible because the connections were just too bad. And for fighting games like and precision, that stuff mattered a lot.
To this day, they no longer work on GGPO or Evo directly themselves, but these two guys have done an incredible amount of work in revolutionizing the FGC. That cannot be understated. And also on the right, working on Rising Thunder, was Seth Killian. Along with being probably my favorite fighting game tournament commentator of all time, he was a big, heavy influence in the release of Street Fighter 4 and was working as a Capcom community manager in that game, but also apparently he had his words were in the ear of Ono at the time, apparently, and he had some influence in the design direction of the game. And Street Fighter 4 ended up revolutionizing and revitalizing the fighting game community as it is today. I would not be here without Street Fighter 4. And he also
a lot of people wouldn't be here for without Street Fighter 4.
Like Dive Kick, an indie fighting game title. And it's just been a big part of fighting game culture for many years. So these guys founded Radiant Entertainment, working on Rising Thunder. Rising Thunder and Radiant Entertainment were then purchased by Riot Games in 2016. Rising Thunder goes offline. That's when things start to get interesting. Now, why would Riot Games, out of nowhere, come by and purchase up this studio? Were they just trying to squash out the competition? Were they scared about their title Stonehearth and this Rising Thunder game in these genres? Probably not. They probably wanted to build on top of these prototypes and bring them into the fold of the Riot Games universe. So this became a big news story that Riot Games acquires Rising Thunder and Stonehearth Studio Radiant Entertainment. And this is when the speculation begins. In the fighting game community, you have to understand, we're not Riot Games, okay? Things are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the 2016 League of Legends World Championship looked like.
Jesus
At this
Christ.
time, 2016, esports is in full force. I mean, venture capitalists are pouring millions upon millions of dollars, funding insane salaries for top-level players. Developers are pushing for esports. There's speculation that esports is going to be bigger than the Super
Look
Bowl.
at that
This is the
joint,
next
bro.
big
Like,
thing
that
that's going to
looks
take
like an
over the
actual,
world. It
like,
is
basketball
full steam ahead,
stadium.
Gravy train going. Absolute insanity that people are expecting esports to be.
Actually,
the
I think
biggest
it is a
thing ever.
basketball stadium.
Obviously,
It looks
we've
like
seen
the
that bubble
Garden.
has popped since then, but that was the world we were living in.
It's like
at
Madison
the time.
Square Garden.
Meanwhile, in the FGC,
But the
we
fact
were
of how
playing Melty Blood
crowded
in the
it
bathrooms
is,
for
like,
grand finals, right? Like it was just
like how
it was just not
crowded that
really
joint looks
the
is
same
crazy.
thing. Like this is the classic stereotype for fighting game players.
That's
That
messed
it's
up,
just
bro.
a poverty genre. Obviously, this is like next level. It's not like this across the board, but generally, it's a community scene driven by passion, not necessarily by the monetary incentive for competing.
That's
There was
absolutely
very
ridiculous.
little money in the fighting game community, and it was mostly disconnected tournaments run by local organizers that people met up to play. And yeah, there was a handful of top players that made a living being a professional player, but for the most part, that wasn't really the case. Now, there was esports initiatives in the fighting game community, mainly with Street Fighter. And at this time, Street Fighter 4 just concluded, and we're going into the era of Street Fighter 5. And if you compare 2016 Street Fighter 5 to 2016 League of Legends, you can see that it's just orders of magnitude different.
Jesus.
Street Fighter 5
$350,000.
the biggest prize pool we had ever seen in the fighting game community, and that was $250,000 for first place, with $350,000 total in the pricing. And for League of Legends, they had over 5 million.
Million.
Right? So
Jesus
just,
Christ.
you could not
That's a
compare this.
major difference.
So when we see in the community at this time that Riot, who is putting out tournaments with over $5 million, is buying a studio that is founded and owned by the Cannon brothers and Seth Killian.
That would have probably made the fighting game community really hype. That would have been really hype for the fighting game community, because, like, obviously they think that now fighting games is going to bring the money, the bread.
There's speculation about Riot producing a fighting game that's going to take over the entire community. It's going to dethrone Capcom as being the king of the FGC, and Street Fighter is going to be Dunzo, and they're going to be signing exclusive contracts to esports players, and they're going to be full-time Riot fighting game specialists, and it's going to make full-time careers, and an entire industry is going to form around this Riot fighting game. This is where the imaginations are starting to run crazy before there is even a game that existed at all. And yet also to understand at this time, Street Fighter V was not very well received. Street Fighter 4 ended on a high note. It was a game that was growing year after year with a lot of community enthusiasm. And at the same time, they were building up the esports initiative with the Capcom Cup. Street Fighter V releases, though, to almost universal.
Sorry about that. My nose was running. I had to go blow my nose real quick.
Glitchy, buggy, lacked content. It was just underbaked.
Blow my nose. I got the tissue with me.
That led to.
That's why I don't have to get up again.
In the FGC,
blow it right here in front of y'all.
Looking for something new to come and replace Street Fighter V at this time. So people were hungry for change and hungry for someone to kind of shake up the status quo in the fighting game community. And Dr. Danny Fam here, my man, pulled up this old 4chan post with the recent news. This is a post from 2016. It'll be funny to see Street Fighter V fully die once Riot's new game is revealed. The irony is, for all the shit talk the FGC does against anime games, those will be the only fighters with any kind of fan base left, aside from NRS garbage, once Riot's games hits. 10 years ago, this was the actual mentality that you would see
crazy.
in the pockets of the FGC.
That's crazy, people talking like that.
On. Keep in mind, still no game announced, just the purchase.
That's crazy that they were thinking like that. See, that's why I can't really mess with the FGC. Like, I just mess with NetherRealm, you know what I mean? Like, FGC, I don't really care about, because, like, the people within there, their mindset is warped, bro. Like, they don't really have a good mindset at all. Like, I did a video about that too, where like Mortal Kombat's in a class of its own. It's not, and Mortal Kombat is not part of the FGC. Mortal Kombat is its own FGC. You know what I mean? So
This is the first look that we had in 2019.
That's wild to think that just anything would kill the fighting game genre at this point. The fighting game genre, I won't say it's too big, but it's too ingrained into gaming.
Were paying attention to 2XKO at all?
It's too ingrained into gaming.
Has a completely different art style. It's more of this like.
And to think just because Riot got bread, Riot got money or whatever, they'll just be able to come in and just take over. Like, since when has there been a fighting game able to do something like that in the fighting game genre? You know what I mean? Like let's really talk about that. Like, in the fighting, this ain't like the shooting game genre and stuff like that. In the fighting game genre, when has there been a game that just came through and was able to completely take over the fighting game genre? Dude, the biggest fighting games that are out now and today has been out since the 90s, since the fighting game genre popped. We have yet to come across a fighting game that was so epic that it just took over the genre and then made all of these other iconic games just die off. You know what I mean? It's not like shooting games or action games or, you know, MMOs and all that stuff. Not MMOs, but RPGs and all that other stuff. Like, nah. The top fighting games today were still the top fighting games back in the 90s when they first came out. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken. Like, Virtual Fighter kind of sort of fell off, but they do got another Virtual Fighter coming out soon. Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers came out, for those who don't know, Smash Brothers came out in the 90s. I think it dropped in like 96 or something like that, 97. And Smash Brothers Ultimate is one of the biggest fighting games out today. So, I mean, you do have the Dragon Ball games. Like Dragon Ball had fighting games in the 90s. I know one of the most popular ones in the 90s was called what is it? Dragon Ball Z GT Final Bout, I think it was, and it came out in like the late 90s or something like that. So Dragon Ball today is still one of the bigger fighting games out. The versus games like your Marvels versus Capcom and stuff like that, that came out in the 90s. I think it was first X-Men versus Street Fighter, and then like late 90s it was like Marvel vs. Capcom 1 or something like that. All of those came out in the 90s, and they're still like amongst the biggest games out today. Not so much like Marvel vs. Capcom, but like the versus type genre. Because like if you look at Dragon Ball Fighters, that became more of a versus type thing. Even though it's still the Dragon Ball franchise and stuff. I want to say the only few games that came out like after all of that kind of really popped. I mean, you even look at Killer Instinct as well. Killer Instinct is from the 90s. Now, granted, we haven't had another Killer Instinct since 2013. And I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of that particular Killer Instinct, but it still had its own fan base. The only game that I can think of that really came out like after the 90s that kind of sort of found an audience is Dead or Alive, which after Dead or Alive 6, who knows what's up with Dead or Alive. I don't know if that thing is dead now or not, but Dead or Alive, I think that started after the 90s, or that might have actually started late 90s too, actually, now that I think about it. I don't remember. It's either late 90s or early 2000s. And the Naruto games, like the Naruto Ninja Storm games, or just ninja games. It's any of the Naruto games, because most of them were like fighting games anyway. Those were definitely after the 2000s, if I recall correctly. But other than that, like the most iconic games out for the most part nowadays, most of them came out before the 2000s. So for anybody to think that just this new game, because it has like a big backer behind it, it was gonna come in and just take over the fighting game community. Nah, that's not how this works, bro. Like, the fighting game community has harvested and fostered generations of people who are either Tekken players, who are Street Fighter players, who are Mortal Kombat players. So, like, to think that just this new game, just because it was Riot and Riot was known for big dollar tournaments, like, nah, it was never gonna fly like that. It was never gonna fly like that.
Replies. Project L is definitely poised to create the next big fighting game, and boom, similar to Street Fighter 4 and DBFZ. The bar is so low that all it needs is to be a solid, fun fighting game. And
wow.
Top of the market, since free-to-play, rollback netcode, and long-term developer support is already guaranteed.
Wow. Yo, the audacity. And this is just 4 years ago. This is just 4 years ago. And they over here talking about how the bar is so low that all it needs to be is a solid, fun fighting game. and it'll already be at the top market since free to play. Rollback netcodes and long-term development support is already guaranteed. Now my question is long-term support actually guaranteed? Because they're 3 weeks into the game's official release and they're already laid off like half their staff. So is long-term support actually guaranteed? Like these people from the FGC just talking out their ass, bro. It's ridiculous. It's sad. And for them to say the bar is so low. This is 4 years ago, bro. 4 years ago, we still had Dragon Ball Fighters popping off. We still had Street Fighter 5 at its best. At its best. Like Street Fighter 5 started off like not great, but it got better every year. So 4 years ago, this is not too long right before Street Fighter 6 came out, because I think Street Fighter 6 been out about 3 years now. So this is not too long before Street Fighter 6. Street Fighter 5 is at its best. If I'm not mistaken, this is actually around the time they activated the V shift or V reversal or something like that. They were still adding stuff to like Street Fighter 5 like late into its life cycle. So Street Fighter 5 is at the top of its game at this point. You still have Mortal Kombat 11, which is NetherRealm's best selling and most popular fighting game of all time, and it's one of the best selling and one of the most popular fighting games of all time. And like I said, you still had Tekken 7, because Tekken 8 wasn't out, and Tekken 7 was crushing it, even though Tekken 7 had already been out for 6 years or 5 years or something by this point. Like Tekken 7 had been out for a hot minute by this point, but it was still killing it, especially at tournaments, like tournament numbers and stuff like that. You also had Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers Ultimate was out around this time, the best-selling fighting game of all time. The audacity for this loser to sit here and say that the bar is so low that all it needs to do is a solid fight. You just set, that mentality set Project L up for failure, for absolute failure, bro. A solid, fun fighting game when it's going to be competing with some of the best selling and best rated fighting games of all time, with Smash Brothers, with Mortal Kombat 11 being one of the best selling fighting games. Hell, even Street Fighter 5 and even Tekken 7 are amongst the best selling fighting, as well as Dragon Ball Fighters. All of these games cracked 10 million units. Before that was very rare. The only games before like MK11 and Ultimate Smash Brothers and Tekken 7 and Street Fighter 5 and Dragon Ball Fighters that cracked 100 million was, 10 million was Street Fighter 2. It was Street Fighter 2 from like the 1990s and stuff like that. Then there was like 1 or 2 Smash Brothers games. And then I think there was like 1 Dragon Balls game, or it was Naruto game. I think it was like Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 or something like that. It was like 4 games that had cracked 10 million up until Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, Mortal Kombat 11, and Dragon Ball Fighters and Smash Brothers, Ultimate Smash Brothers. Bro, 5 games. I just named 5 games within the same generation. Mind you, within the same generation. Oh, I forgot Mortal Kombat X had also cracked 10 million too. But like 6 fighting games within, I would say 5 fighting games within the same generation cracked 10 million. And you talking about the bar is so low? That's ridiculous, bro. That's why you can't take the FGC people serious, my guy.
Guaranteed. I don't know about that last one, man. I don't.
Yeah, see, even Brian F says he don't know about that last one.
The ball hard for the game to not be a huge success. And I do agree with the whole save the FGC. Hype Train needs to chill those, and Suppose says the FGC isn't doing bad enough that it needs saving. So this was a common attitude at the time, right? This idea of save the FGC. People were really on the hype train still at this point in 2021, 5 years after Rising Thunder was purchased. It's been a long time at this point. And we just found out it went from 1v1 to a 2v2 fighting game. Some evolution, some pivoting of the direction of the game along the way. But time goes on, and the world of fighting games is also still evolving as time keeps moving. Street Fighter 6 eventually comes out in 2023, and it is a smashing success. That window of opportunity where Street Fighter 5 kind of dropped the ball in the beginning of its release and let the power vacuum is fully filled at this point, right? DBFZ came out, Guilty Gear Strive came out, A lot of solid titles. Tekken 7 took up a lot of space in the fighting game community. And then Street Fighter 6 comes out. Boom. It is a smash success. It's a fully fledged release. Content filled, feature rich, great online play. And then it's just dominating in the community itself.
I'm actually disappointed that he didn't mention.
It explodes in Japan exponentially as well.
He mentioned all of that stuff that Street Fighter 6 has, but didn't mention anything about MK11. Like MK11 doesn't have all of that and more. So that's crazy. And then he said Street Fighter 5 left a vacuum or whatever. Like, come on now. I swear, Mortal Kombat games don't get the recognition it deserves, especially MK11, dude. Like, how is MK? If you're gonna give any recognition, give it to at least MKX and MK11.
And EVO 2023 becomes the largest EVO and potentially offline gaming tournament period of all time, with 7,000 people entering, which is an insane number for Street Fighter 6 or for EVO in general. And yeah, that.
I also want to say that's the last EVO that Mortal Kombat 11 was in.
Street Fighter 6 is here, baby. It's the king, and it still is the king right now in the fighting game community, and is blowing up even more out in Japan. So where is 2XKO at this time? It's been 2 years since they announced that they're doing a tag fighter. Well, 2XKO introducing duo play. So now at this time, not only did they finally change from Project L to 2XKO, they announced that it's going to be a 2v2 game, in the sense that if you so choose, you can actually play either 1v1, 1v2, or 2v2. It is a tag fighting game where, typically the most competitive mode will be one player versus one player, but you can opt also to have a separate player on your team control another character and try to synergize with your opponent and synchronize your tagging and play as a team. Which
I actually think that is pretty cool. Concept. That is very creative and cool.
It had already been done, by the way.
It has been. It
had already been done by Street Fighter Cross Tekken. But because tagging was such a more fluid mechanic in this game, it definitely incentivized a lot more back and forth with your teammates.
Mortal Kombat 11 also had that too. It was in the Towers of Time joint where you can actually team up with like another person against like a boss battle. Though I don't think it was in regards to versus, but you could do it in MK11. But it was against the computer, not against other people.
And it kind of made sense, right? If they're going for the League of Legends experience, League of Legends is exclusively a team-based game. So it kind of fit with the whole vibe of doing a League fighter. And I think there was a lot of positive reception to that, where it's like, okay, tag game, you can play 1v1 and also have the option for duos and teams. This could be something. You could be cooking something up. And of course, they were at that EVO. That EVO where Street Fighter was running the show, man. 7,000 entrants. Their presence in the community is everywhere, right? They have playable builds of the game now out in public. So if you show up at these events, you can sit down and play 2XKO. They got the booths. They got boots on the ground for the developers and the team out there promoting the game. They got the arcade sticks with the branding. They have arcade cabs with 2XKO branding. They have these builds out in the hands of people or getting feedback and promoting the game with old school boots on the ground in the fighting game community marketing. And go on to 2024. They're still kind of continuing in this process of trying to get the hands out, get the game into the hands of the people without fully releasing the game itself. In 2024, they started doing these alpha labs. So for people on PC, you finally got your hands on the game itself, and people had a lot of feedback from that. And, people are starting to form their opinions. They have the Alpha Lab 2 as well. If you go to EVO Japan, you can get your hands on the build. If you go to EVO Vegas again in 2025, you can get your hands on the latest builds. They keep updating the game, and they keep giving people access if you are in the Alpha Labs, if you happen to get a code, if you happen to have a PC, maybe if you're, a pro player, maybe you get a little bit more hands-on time in the game. Slowly, the game is both accessible and inaccessible at the same time.
Yeah.
It's both exposed and also unplayable. Over time, more and more people are playing the game, streaming it, footage out there. And at the same time, a lot of people are sitting at the sidelines observing without being able to play the game.
Yeah, they should have had an open beta.
Of the hardcore fighting game audience exclusively plays on
consoles. Yeah.
Now, a lot of the League audience, of course, exclusively plays on PC because they're playing League of Legends. You are a PC audience. But for fighting games, they went from arcades to consoles for the most part.
He's spitting right now. He definitely spitting. 2XKO definitely should have had an open beta across all platforms.
Stay exclusively on consoles. So there's a couple things going on here where there's a bit of discontent brewing where people who don't have access to the games are feeling a bit stiff, feeling a bit like, hey, I'm out. I'm not on the inside. I'm not in the club. I don't have clout. I don't have privilege to get access to this. I'm
Yep.
from a different country.
I felt that way, and I have a PC.
I can't afford to go to Evo. And at the same time, they're getting bored watching the game be optimized and developed by the community, and the discovery period where people are figuring out how to play the game is happening before their eyes without them being a part of it. And also people are kind of judging the game itself. Like, it's getting a lot of scrutiny at this time. And here's where
the big three.
What people
let's go
from a fighting game. The big three.
Let's go Mortal Kombat.
And Street Fighter 6.
That's right.
Are the big three because they have been doing it the biggest for the longest. They are
established
fighting game IPs
since the 90s.
From
Titans.
The initial wave of fighting games. You know, Street Fighter 2 kind of set the genre and kickstarted it. It set the standards, and then Street Fighter managed to survive through its lull with Street Fighter 3 into Street Fighter 4. Mortal Kombat also escaped and became like the American-developed fighting game. Tekken as well for the premier 3D fighting game.
Yep.
And these IPs now are a name brand.
Yes, sir.
And they sell the most copies. And a big thing about these fighting games is, for one, none of them are free to play products. They come fully fledged with story modes, arcade modes, training modes, and then all the multiplayer options as well. They're not specifically focused on just competitive multiplayer or specifically only an esports focus, like something like a League of Legends would be. And the other thing about them is, gameplay-wise, they're all usually 1v1 fighting games.
Yes. Yes, sir.
They're usually 1v1 fighting games. I know the latest Mortal Kombat entry has assists, and that's actually a little bit controversial in the MK community. But they get their sales in other ways, right? Generally, the sales come from people who just like the art of the game, the energy, the presentation, the super.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat tends to be visually stunning games.
To these titles, aside from just simply the competitive side of the gameplay itself. Meanwhile, this is what 2XKO looks like. So this was one clip I could find to easily embed in this, and this is like the most tame sequence you can think of for 2XKO. This is a 2v2 game with characters like Echo, who has a rewind ability to set up like 15-way mix-ups into tag launchers, into your assists to keep the combo going, into pretty much touch-of-death combos, right?
Yeah, that don't look fun. That does not look fun at all.
The amount of complexity with the tag mechanics that this game
dude deleted more than half his health, bro.
End up with is absurd, which in some ways is actually a positive thing, right? Like there's people who really enjoy that. But on the other hand, you could make an argument that it ends up developing in such a way that it harms the visual clarity and it raises the barrier to entry for most people. Instead of having to learn one character.
I could agree with that. It does raise the barrier of entry.
Synergize and how they operate against two other characters and their synergy as well. So it's a bit of a hardcore fighting game in that sense. And that potentially could be off-putting. Potentially. I mean, 2XKO.
Well, that's because a lot of the people in the FGC doesn't truly know what it takes to make a successful fighting game. Like, a lot of people in the FGC, I'm sure a lot of people that went to go beta test that game or alpha test that stuff were giving them a bunch of stuff to make for a nice, fun, maybe balanced type fighting game, but nothing to appeal to the casual audience. Your game is not going to succeed unless you can appeal to the casual audience, no matter what game you are, whether it's a fighting game, a shooting game, an MMO, an RPG, an action adventure, whatever game you create. Not only has to be fun, it has to have, solid, gameplay mechanics. It has to be able to appeal to the wider audience. You look at Dragon Ball FighterZ, and yes, Dragon Ball FighterZ may not be it is actually a really easy game to learn for the most part, but Dragon Ball FighterZ is borrowing from the Dragon Ball IP. These are characters that you have the casual market, the casual people who say, oh, I get to play with Goku. Oh, I get to play with Gohan, Vegeta, Piccolo. Like, I get to play with all these cool characters, Beerus. Yes, let me play that game. Let me buy that game. I want to be able to play with these games. I want to be able to shoot somebody in the face with a Kamehameha or a Big Bang or a Masenko, like or a special beam cannon. You know what I mean? So like people are gonna buy a game like Dragon Ball Fighters, even if the gameplay is a little bit harder to learn and stuff like that. And for the most part, in 2XKO did a good job of just making one button press combos and stuff like that. That's kind of what Dragon Ball Z did, Dragon Ball Fighter Z did too, which was really smart. Then you have like the Marvel versus Capcom games. Well, it's Marvel and there's Capcom. So it actually appeals to both casuals and hardcore because you might have a casual who may not be into like fighting games or stuff like that, but there's a game with Wolverine in it. There's a game with Spider-Man in it. Oh, there's a game with Iron Man, Captain America in it. So they're going to pick it up just so that they can play. That's why there's a lot of hype for Marvel Tokon right now too. That's a game that's like a 4v4 fighting game or whatever, but it has Marvel characters in it. It has Ghost Rider in it. It has Iron Man. It has Captain America. So there's a lot of hype for that type of stuff. Even the Power Rangers game. Like if you grew up watching Power Rangers, you may want to play that game because you want to play as the Blue Ranger or the Red Ranger or the White Ranger or the Green Ranger. You know what I mean? And as for the Marvel vs. Capcom game, if you are into fighting games, chances are you play some of the Capcom fighting games or just some of the Capcom games, period. So you may want to play with Ryu, Ken. You may want to play with Tron Bon or Mega Man or, you know, one of those particular characters. So yeah, these games have things and IPs that attract to a casual audience. You look at Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has, you know, some of the most iconic characters of all time, like Scorpion. People that if you went to go see the Mortal Kombat movie, you're gonna be like, oh, that guy's Scorpion. I want to play with him. Let's play Mortal Kombat or Sub-Zero or Liu Kang and stuff like that. If you've seen like the animated movies they have, or if you've seen like the actual live action movies they had, or even the TV show that they have, which was think it was like Mortal Kombat Legends or something like that. Or if you were just somebody that grew up playing or watching somebody get their head ripped off in a fatality, Mortal Kombat will appeal to you. But not only that, Mortal Kombat also did something to further reach out to the casual market, and they started to introduce guest characters. Like Mortal Kombat 9 had like Freddy. Mortal Kombat 9 had Kratos. I think that's it for the guest characters in MK9. But then you had MKX, which had Alien, Predator, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface. MK11 had Rambo, RoboCop, Spawn. There's another one. Who else was on there? The Joker. It had the Joker as well, who's an iconic and widely known character. Mortal Kombat 1 has Homelander. It has the Viltrumite dude. I'm forgetting his name. He-Man. You've had He-Man. You have all the dude from Scream. So like Mortal Kombat has done things to appeal to the casual markets. What up? Collapse. Bright and early. Yes, sir. Bright and early. I'm out here bright and early with the videos. But basically what I'm saying is like a lot of these fighting games Collapse tend to have something to appeal to the casuals. I was basically saying like how Dragon Ball is based off of the Dragon Ball Fighters is based off of the Dragon Ball IP. So even if it's a harder game to learn, which it's not because it's like one button combos and stuff like that, people will play it because they want to play with Goku. They want to shoot a Kamehameha and stuff like that. If you are a fan of like Marvel, you may want to play Marvel versus Capcom so you can play with like Wolverine or Iron Man or Captain America. If you are a fan of like Power Rangers, you may buy or play the Power Rangers games. The thing about all of that, like 2XKO didn't have any of that. Yes, 2XKO has a major League of Legends following, and most of them are like hardcores or diehards. None of them really appeal to the casual market. And when you play 2XKO, yes, it's a fun fighting game because you had like, you know, professionals and stuff like that tweak it to make it a good and fun fighting game, but it doesn't have that casual appeal. The only casual appeal it really has is that it's free to play. But it's free to play, at least on PC, it's free to play on only the Riot client, whereas most people and most casuals are on the Steam client. So like if they, like 2XKO can actually do a lot better if they were to like release on Steam as well, but we'll see how that goes. But let's continue with the videos. Collapse, let me know what your 2 cents is on this. Let me know, do you think for a fighting game to succeed, it needs to have a casual market? Like they have Blaze Blue Cross Tag. That's not that, I don't know if that game really appeals to casuals. I don't really hear a lot of casuals talk about Blaze Blue. I hear a lot of hardcore people talk about it, but I don't see a lot of casuals that talk about it.
The ranks of being a tag fighter, and tag fighters historically are like a niche within a niche. I would say the typical fighting game is a 1v1 fighting game, and then there is a subset
Yeah,
of
so
fighting
I
games that
agree.
have
I agree.
assists in them, where you're able to pick a team of characters, call assists. And some of these games are revered and loved games in the world.
Yep, like the Ultimate Ninja Storms that me and your brother be playing Collapse. That's basically, it's not a tag fighter, it's more of an assist fighter. It does have some tag elements, but for the most part, it's an assist fighter because everyone shares like one bar and stuff like that. But it has the Naruto IP, which Naruto, one of the widely successful animes of all time that appeals to a casual market.
Of fighting games and beyond, right? Like look at Marvel vs. Capcom 3, MVC2, Dragon Ball Fighters. These were very successful fighting games that people really do enjoy, even at a casual level outside of the hardcore fighting game community. But
yes, people do enjoy them, but the only reason the casuals even pick them up is because they're based off of IPs that are extremely popular. Dragon Ball is one of the most popular animes of all time. Marvel is just one of the more popular IPs of all time. So
2XKO is not just a tag fighter. It's an active tag fighter. This is like being a niche within a niche within a niche. Because what's left in the screen here is the active tag fighter, some examples I could think up of, and these games are for fucking sickos. Active tag is one of the most mind-bending, insane mechanics that has ever been introduced into a fighting game. It has become kind of like this goal for developers post MVCI. MVCI was one of the first games to really go into this mechanic, along with Blast Blue Cross Tag Battle, and it's just fucking crazy. It's just a crazy mechanic. It really lets sickos who enjoy hardcore, fucked up offense and insane combos go crazy with the game engine. And that can be really, really cool. It can also be seen as really, really oppressive and visually hard to follow with a lot of clutter on the screen. I don't think that's that big of a deal to me personally for a casual appeal, but that could be that's a factor to consider here. It's a factor to consider here. Active tag is when you're able to both call an assist and then swap into that assist at any point in time, meaning you can kind of ping pong between two characters a lot more freely, which leads to a lot more aggressive and complex mix-ups and combo conversions. I'm not going to get too much into the details with that, but just know that this is a game that enables sickos to do sick things in their fighting games. It lets you have a lot of freedom to the point where you can do really fucked up things. Active tag fighters, if that sounds good to you, you want to check them out. Now, the other thing about those games I mentioned before is that a lot of people are trying to play for the story, man. The big three, they got story modes. Mortal Kombat sells like fucking crazy because everyone cares about the story mode.
Yes, sir.
People love Mortal Kombat for the gore. They want to boot it up, play the story mode, do a couple fatalities, call it a day. Mortal Kombat is actually really not popular in the competitive FGC. However, in terms of a business move, it makes a shit ton of money because they sell the most copies. They sell the most copies to the most casual players who lines the pockets of Warner Brothers.
Yes, sir.
And keeps the franchise alive. Meanwhile, in the tournament following, Mortal Kombat actually does not have a very active competitive community, and it tends to fall off very quickly. And right now, it's really struggling in the fighting game community. But
for the most part, yes. But at the same time, it's been on like a two-year lifespan. For like example, Mortal Kombat 9 came out, then 2 years later you had Injustice. Then 2 years after Injustice, it was MKX. Then 2 years after MKX, it was Injustice 2. Then 2 years after Injustice 2, it was MK11. Now MK11 has had the longest run in terms of like tournament play, and it has shown like some consistency towards the end of it too. In terms of like people that actually showed up. In terms of viewership, the viewership for MK11 actually was increasing over time. Like from its debut at EVO in 2019 to its last debut in 2023 at EVO, like the viewership numbers was actually increasing. I think 2023 took a slight dip, but it was increasing since like 2019. So like more and more people was interested in watching MK11. And in terms of people actually going to the tournament, outside of like them showing up in 2019, it kind of leveled off relatively quickly, and it was averaging about 400 to 500 entries or something like that, which is still bigger than most other fighting games. It's not as big as like the big three, like your Smash Brothers, your Street Fighter, and your Tekken in terms of tournament play. But it's still bigger than most other fighting games. It's still like top 6 or some shit like that in terms of entries.
As a business, it definitely gets a lot of playthrough, right? Like it gets a lot of people into the story mode, and it sells a lot of copies. So having that casual content moves copies of the game. It's something that sells the game. Meanwhile, come back to 2XKO. As these alphas are going on, as these we're getting closer and closer to a potential beta, this game is already confirmed to not have story mode, right? It's going to be like League of Legends, focused on competitive multiplayer. That's fine. Okay. Well, there's other ways to get content too. There's content in just terms of characters. A lot of these team games, look at the Marvel vs. Capcom series. This has a lot of beloved characters in these franchises. You have Marvel characters, you have Capcom characters. Having them go at it is crazy. It just it's like really like a brain bender. Being a kid and picking Hulk and Iron Man and having them do supers to each other, and seeing that in an arcade or MBC3, just crazy clash of characters, and they do crazy things, and there's a lot of options and variants to choose from. But then 2XKO confirms that at launch, they're only having 10 characters. So not only do they not have the casual content in terms of like a story mode and other more casual ways to engage with the engine of the game itself, they have 10 characters. And this is confirmed in 2025. 10 years after Rising Thunder, 6 years after the first teaser for Project L, it is confirmed that the game will be releasing with 10 characters for a 2v2 fighting game, meaning you have to use at least 2 of the characters on your team when you play the game, which will lead to so many repeat interactions and less variety in the gameplay experience, and even worse, I would argue, in the spectating experience. Now, of course, the plan is to continue to release new characters, and I think they were aiming for about 5 characters a year was the initial goal with this rollout, get the game to the hands of the people and start rolling out games. But that was a huge blow to the hype and potential like spectator ability.
Yes, sir. It was.
The game itself. And it's really a strange thing to see in a franchise like League of Legends that has over 170 characters at this point.
Jesus Christ.
There's a rich amount of history and lore to pull from that they've been developing over the years.
There's that many people in League of Legends, and they only chose to do 10 of them? They're tripping, dog.
Is that there's a big rift in the League community between League fans and Arcane fans. This is something that I am not privy to. Listen, I don't play League of Legends. I did not watch Arcane. This is not the world.
I watched Arcane, but I've never played League of Legends.
Right? And it got me to pay attention to League of Legends. I never really gave a shit about League of Legends.
Same here. Arcane got me into paying attention to League of Legends.
Hardcore League players kind of hate how much Riot has been pushing Arcane as an IP, and characters that are in the Arcane universe seem to be taking over a lot of the focus and collaborations and recent releases. So there's another issue where a lot of the characters in this 10 character roster are Arcane characters, which pissed off a lot of League players. Like this started to become more of a drama thing where people are like, why is this an Arcane fighter? Why is it all Arcane?
I won't say it's an Arcane fighter. Like there's only like 3 Arcane characters, maybe 4 Arcane characters, bro.
That they're trying to potentially target outside of the fighting game community. It became more drama. We're like, hey, I don't have my character. I don't have the character that I relate to, that I want. I'm really attached to, and that would drive my passionate engagement with this game, because fighting games are really about like really relating and connecting with their characters. Same thing with like a League of Legends, right? And especially fighting games, I would argue, even more so. It's not a genre with character bands and a team roster. You pick your game. Some people are ride or die with one character for life, for a game or a franchise's life cycle, lifespan. they stick with one character. If you don't have that character for someone, they might drop your game entirely. It can make or break a player's participation. So having only 10 characters and pissing off a lot of people from the game that you're basing, the IP that you're basing the game off of, is already kind of like failing to capture the audience. Because the typical strategy for a fighting game based on an IP, hey, Dragon Ball FighterZ came out, you got Goku, get Goku in there, get Vegeta, get Frieza, get Piccolo, get all the fan favorites in the game.
Yes,
from
sir.
a franchise like Dragon Ball, and people will buy the game and play it, even if they don't know a damn thing about the fighting game genre. And Dragon Ball FighterZ did that incredibly successfully.
And that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about.
Seen from the secondary hardcore audience that stuck with the game and learned the main mechanics, and some of those casual players who did not know anything about fighting games or the fighting game community or the esports scene ended up playing. A small percentage of them ended up playing competitively.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Game, right? That's generally the net that you're casting with these products.
That's how you got to do it.
2XKO is an esports product first without the casual appeal, and you're starting to see the cracks form as we're getting closer and closer to the release. So after all these weird alpha labs and like this unequal access for people who are at events, and like there's developer builds leaking out in the wild, there's concerns about competitive integrity with top players getting too much access behind closed doors, they finally come out with a closed beta on September 9th, 2025, and this will be available globally on PC. Once again, not available on consoles. And normally this wouldn't be an issue. League players are all on PC, so it should still be active, should be popping. Not a problem.
You would think.
But
you would
remember,
think.
The fighting game community is largely on consoles. Jay Snyder here, MVC 3 2011 Evo Champ, even commented about this when they didn't have any announcement about console release during the closed beta for 2XKO. He said, I try to refrain from being negative on social media these days, but we're working hard on console. It's not an update, and the fact that they can't give a roadmap or any real details is almost an insult. There's literally no chance for me to compete at this game, being now 3 months behind, and it's looking like it's going to be another 4+ months behind. I don't know if I was ever going to be good at this game, or if I'm too old now, but at this point, it's irrelevant. When's Tokon, referring to Marvel Tokon, an upcoming fighting game based on the Marvel franchise by the other fighting game developer in the scene right now, Arxis, who made Dragon Ball FighterZ, right? So even hardcore fighting game players are starting to be fed up with this lack of access because, yeah, if it's a competitive focused game and I'm multiple months behind because I'm only on console, what's the point? How can I even compete? How can I catch up to those hundreds to thousands of hours that other people have at that time? And this is also where you start to see this weird, the game is released, but the game's not released, sort of status quo going on.
Yeah, it was
the
weird.
Closed beta rolled straight into early access a few weeks after the closed beta began. So it was about 2 or 3 weeks where they did closed beta on PC, and then they just decided to update it and call it early access, but it's still not available on console. This is also starting to lead to confusion where people don't know if the game is released or not.
Oh, yeah.
They have no idea.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a big deal during the Game Awards. During the Game Awards, at least for me, like, I was kind of upset that 2XKO was nominated because technically 2XKO wasn't officially released. It had like an early access on PC, which, like, not a lot of people knew how to access that early access. You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people knew that you had to, like, download the Riot join and somehow get it through there. A lot of people was expecting it to come to Steam as well, too, because again, a large portion of the casual PC people are going to be on Steam. So when it was announced as Fighting Game of the Year nominee at the Game Awards, like, I myself was kind of upset. I'm like, yo, the game's not even out yet. Like, why the hell would it be nominated? That's kind of how I felt with like PUBG. When that was announced for like Game of the Year, when that joint was still in beta or early access or something like that, and it was some other games that were nominated while they were still in early access, and I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The game's not even out yet. And then sure enough, when it does finally come out, like the marketing around it was so low that nobody even knew that the game was out. Like, nobody knew, there was no reviews out, nobody was talking about it. Like, people started to figure out that the game was out after, I want to say, like, around the time of the first tournament, which the first tournament took place a couple days after the game came out. A couple days, maybe to a week. after the game actually came out, and that's when people started to realize, oh shit, 2XKO is out. Let's see what this is about. So the marketing wasn't really it wasn't really good, and there was a lot of confusion about the release date because you had people seeing gameplay and stuff of 2XKO, but then when they go to download it or play it or see, how to go about playing it, it wasn't originally out, especially if you were on consoles. And if you was on PC, it wasn't like easily. It says early access, but it wasn't the easiest thing to access or find out the information to access it.
Meanwhile, there is zero awareness of this game's existence outside of the fighting game community. They are marketing it heavily with the pro fighting game scene, with the hardcore fighting game community. They're at the fighting game events. They're active on Twitter. And keep in mind, a large part of the dev team is from the community itself, right? The Cannon brothers themselves are OG founding members of the fighting game community. And a lot of the champ designers, QA, a lot of the people working top to bottom on this game are hardcore competitive fighting game players who now have a job in the industry. So it makes sense that they're really tight-knit with this small niche community, but it's not grabbing the attention of anyone outside of this, nor is it grabbing attention from the greater league community, which has millions of players compared to the thousands of players that fighting games have. I mean, they tried. There was an attempt. 2XKO is literally in the Riot client when you go to launch the games. Like, it's there. You can see it. But most League players just autopilot into League. They don't think about the Riot client at all. But it's there. You can see the icon. It's in the bottom left. But for the most part, it's like not working, it seems like. And even during the closed beta, here's some stream charts that tracked the most viewership. All of the streamers who had the most viewership during these closed betas and early access were all fighting game or fighting game adjacent streamers. The only one I would argue who's not FGC is Northern Lion here, who had very few total hours streamed to the game, but because he just has so much viewership, he jumped to the 5th place position here in this chart. So it's already looking a little funky. Where is the Tyler 1? Where is all the big League streamers? The League streamers have far, far, far more viewership. I mean, go to any fighting game on Twitch right now compared to League of Legends. The League of Legends category destroys fighting game viewership across the board 24/7. None of the League players have even considered dabbling in this game and giving it the promo that it needs. Because once again, this is a free-to-play fighting game. It's going to need a player base to sustain its population and to drive sales to cosmetics in order to actually pay for the development costs and make a profit. And once again, talking about the player counts here, here's Tekken 8, right? Like 46,000 all-time peak on Steam charts, 6,000 24-hour peak. Compare that to number of monthly League of Legends players, it's in the hundreds of millions. Like, it's just, you can't
Christ,
compare this
dude.
shit. It doesn't. There's no.
I didn't realize how that League of Legends was that popular. Like, what is League of Legends, bro? Like, what? I need to look at that game and find out why is it so popular. That's insane. Since 2011, its popularity has only increased, only taken a slight dip in 2018. Why, I'm not sure, but it's only increased. Like, why is that? I've heard of League of Legends, but like, it never in my mind I would have imagined that it was as popular as it is. Like, what makes that game so popular? I don't even know what the gameplay is for that game, bro. I need to look up some gameplay reviews or something.
Digital avatar lobby where you sit down next to the caps and actually play people. You queue up there, like trying to mimic.
He said, been in an empty lobby for 2 days now.
Players go through in real life. And you start to see these discussions, like people are starting to notice that, hey, it feels like there's not as much engagement going on with this game as you might have expected. Remember, this is now 2025. It's been 6 years since the first announcement of Project L. People were talking about Riot and Project L, the League of Legends fighting game is going to save the FGC. Back in 2016, people thought this was going to blow Street Fighter out of the water and be far more active and have far more opportunities in esports and build careers. The reality is starting to not shape up with that much engagement. And I felt this firsthand. I played the game and I actually enjoyed it myself. Content I produced around the game got significantly less viewership than any other fighting game ever. Ever since I started to have an active YouTube channel, I've done content for Tekken 7, Tekken 8, DNF Duel, Guilty Gear Strive, Avatar, what any random fighting game that's released that I dabble with for a couple weeks. All of them got significantly more engagement and viewership across Twitch and YouTube videos than 2XKO. something about the game, even for the hardcore FGC, is starting to not generate the buzz even within the niche, much less pulling League of Legends players out here.
That's
So people are starting
disappointing
to
because
notice.
2XKO is actually pretty fun.
We care
It is a
on.
fun game.
We do have the console launch. Finally, with short notice, they announced that the console launch is occurring on January 20th, 2026. And, it's free to play. So when it drops out, hey, it released. Hey, it's on PS5, and you can see.
It's crazy. It came out January 20th. It has not even been a month yet. We're in February 12th. It's only been 3 weeks. Like, just going on 3 weeks at that, too. It's a shame.
On the PS5 charts that it's actually number 3 in US and Canada behind Fortnite and Roblox, which pretty good. It's hard to beat Roblox and Fortnite. At this point, people have already started to temper their expectations a little bit.
That's really good because it
like,
beat
okay,
Marvel
this shit's
Rivals.
not, like blowing the roof off of the fighting game genre, but maybe it can be a solid slow burn of a release. And now it's actually officially released, even though it was in a weird amorphous state where it had been visible and played for 2 years since 2023, 2024 with all these alpha labs and betas. Now it's available to the world, and maybe it can build momentum with its free-to-play, no cost to entry, and build an organic following over time. But, is that guaranteed? We've seen this before, right? This whole time, there was another fighting game that went down a similar trajectory. Multiverses was Warner Brothers' attempt to do a Smash clone with their massive amounts of various IPs all under one label, and Multiverses released as a free-to-play platform fighter.
Oh, multiplayers was really popular when it originally launched, like extremely popular.
A lot of buzz in the beginning. It actually had a lot more buzz than 2XKO did
upon
very
initial popular
release. This thing even won Fighting Game of the Year
in
early access. It then died, was revived, and died again. And along the way, it had major gameplay overhauls, altering everything from character balance to combo systems to gameplay speed and the likes. It was struggling to change every dial it possibly could to figure out what would make people stick. And the comparisons between 2XKO and Multiverses were happening a lot. A lot of people got defensive about this, but it was hard to not see, like, hey, like the last time we had a major publisher come into somewhat of an adjacent fighting game fold and tried to make something happen here, it ended up with a colossal failure, and Multiverses eventually just went offline and hasn't been online for, I believe, a couple years at this point. So people were still concerned at this point, but there's still hope. There's still hope. We have a lot of issues to go through, but there's still hope. I actually forgot about all these controversies. I'm just going to do a rapid fire of all the other controversies that were surrounding this game's official console release at this time. I think people were finally reaching a head with the pro player privilege. People were concerned about how many pro players were having access to pre-release content. People were complaining about the monetization in the game, $100 arcane skins. There was backlash about a Twitch sponsorship gone wrong. There was concerns about the direction of the gameplay. The developers who are in constant communication with the community were talking about making big changes, big swings to the core gameplay. The balance issues with only 10 characters in the game. Yasuo and Echo are running the show. They're pretty much in every tournament match, leading to fatigue from viewership as well, which, of course, is exasperated by the fact that there's only 10 characters, 12 characters now in the game. And then, of course, the console launch itself was not flawless. Tons and tons of screen tearing on PS5. So a lot of issues surrounding the release at this time. But there's hope with Frosty Faustings. Look,
yes.
At this point in the...
I would say around this time or this tournament, which was like... Yeah, it was like within the first week that the game came out. The game came out or about a week after the game came out. Game came out January 20th. This tournament took place January 29th. So like 9 days after the game came out, a little over a week, about a week and a half after the game came out, is when the buzz started to really pop about 2XKO, and that's when you started seeing a lot more reviews and content and stuff dropping around it. Prior to this, though, like the reviews and content was light, bro. Like nobody was talking about this joint.
In the game's lifespan, it is so clear. This game is not resonating with the League of Legends audience. And it's barely even resonating. It's hanging on by a thread within the core FGC. But maybe we can slowly build an organic following and an organic, sustainable future through these tournaments, put on a hype show, get people interested in the game, and slowly build something, get some viral moments, get something to get the people excited, share clips of the game, and slowly build the awareness among the greater gaming community. Frosty Faustings is a FGC community-run tournament. This is as grassroots as it gets here. For 2XKO, Riot is not doing a full professional tour. However, for this season, they promised to do a championship circuit where they only put in prize money. They're not actually doing like a tour finals or anything like crowning a grand champion at the end, but they're just supporting local tournaments to try to get engagement up in these events and kind of support the players and the scene itself. So $50,000, chump change to League of Legends players, but this is huge money. For fighting game players, ka-ching. I mean, this is like big money.
I won't say it's big money. It's money. I won't say big money.
Pay me $20 and a bologna sandwich, and I'll get on that plane to compete. Like my life depends on it. So Frosty Faustings might be an opportunity for positive buzz in the community.
And it was.
And you know what?
It was.
I think it really kind of was.
Mm-hmm.
The tournament ended up being really enjoyable to watch. There was a decent enough character variety in the top 8. The gameplay was high energy, wasn't causing people's eyes to glaze over. Bleed, 16 years old, was a new fighting game champion. Really good storyline there. Sonic Fox and Enzem entered as a duo and made top 8, so people got to see that there was a potential for 1 versus 2 gameplay, showing off a unique aspect to the 2XKO formula.
Yes, there was a lot of hype.
Had peak viewership of around 41,000 viewers, which is nothing, once again, for League, but for fighting games, that's not bad. That's nothing to scoff at. And it seemed like there could be positive momentum from this, positive top 8, get people interested in the game, and have more people playing 2XKO for a slow burn, a slow momentum build to get this game on the right track until the announcement. 2 weeks after Frosty Faustings, the update hit from Riot Games that half the dev team is being laid off. And this is real shit because, you know, a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of really good people, and people from the fighting game community itself.
10 years on 2XKO.
10 years on 2XKO, 12 at Riot, and I got laid off with 30 minutes notice.
Wow.
Got to take some time. So it hit people pretty hard. But on top of the fact that a lot of good people from the FGC unfortunately lost their jobs, it's not just, you know, people who were working on content that will no longer be relevant or needed. There's some speculation you could argue that this is the typical life cycle for a publisher after a game is released, cut down on the dev team to have a more leaner team to maintain the game going forward once the bulk of the foundational work is done. That is an argument that people could make, and a lot of this could just be pure greed from the developers themselves, because in the fighting game, not just the fighting game, but in the gaming industry period, developers are known for just, you know, completely canning teams, even if they have a smash success on their hands. But you also see here Caroline and Blinkety, lead champ designers who produced most of the characters in the game, were also laid off as well, which does not bode well for the life cycle of the game for producing new characters, which is the expectation for a fighting game, especially one with only 10 currently or 12 currently. Their goal was to have 5 characters a year. Kind of hard to do if you start laying off the character designers who produce a lot of the characters in the game currently. And so it doesn't lead me to assume that there's still going to be a steady stream of content for supporting the game for too long. It leaves a lot of questions in terms of the longevity of the product. Not that this is just a leaning of the dev team to sustain the game for years to come, but that maybe the goal is to just release what is mostly already complete and then slowly transition to end of service a lot sooner than initially expected. So with the full announcement again from Tom Cannon, you know, they talked about that they wanted to make the team a lot more sustainable, and they want to continue to make 2XKO a great product. It's hard to feel confident about that statement in the face of massive amounts of layoffs so shortly after a free-to-play game was released, one that had a decade of development time leading up to it, and has only currently 12 characters to show for it, and does not have that much momentum in terms of engagement from the core FGC, the core target audience, and the adjacent IP that it's attached to. And it's not looking good. I cannot say I feel confident about the future of 2XKO at all from this point. My suspicion is that they're going to release this season of DLC characters, get 5 characters out, and I think that might be it. I think we got a year max of support.
That's crazy.
I could be totally wrong about that.
That's crazy. Brian F thinks that they only got a year before this game dies. I hope not. I hope it finds a way to pull through. But that's crazy.
Impression from this is that this is going to be winding down way sooner than expected. But I could be wrong, and people still plan on playing the game and competing. They're going to be continuing to support the competitive series for 2026, so they'll still have the prize pools for the core FGC. It feels like there's 1 year left. That's my impression. And
that's
it's
crazy.
A little sad to see such a strange fumble. But the question also still remains, like, what happened? Like, what happened? The weird thing about this is that when this news broke, this is by far the most viral engagement opportunity that 2XKO has ever received. This was a major story, far beyond the reaches of anything that organically happens typically within the fighting game community. We had major influencers like Ludwig talking about this, and the responses were, of course, extremely typical for what you would expect. Z-Chrome, game release with next to no marketing. It's been out for what feels like a year now. 80% of characters are targeting the arcane market rather than the FGC community. Small roster, lack of general hype for what's in the game at the moment. And Vienna VTuber here says, I didn't even know it was released, lol. The thing is, it did have marketing. They had a trailer in the Game Awards. They were at every single fighting game tournament. So within the fighting game niche, you could not escape it. If you were a fighting game player, you literally could not avoid the marketing whatsoever. It was actually over-marketed to a degree. People were complaining about influencers being bought and paid shills and inspired. It was so marketed that it started to...
See, that's the problem, though. They marketed it to people who already knew the game was coming out. You have to market to the casual audience. You got to market to people who don't know the game is coming out. What are you doing?
Go the opposite direction, where people were fed up and fatigued from it and had a very negative reaction to seeing 2XKO, to hearing about it. And at the same time, it was in the Riot client. It was advertised. There was massive trailers put out. There was marketing. I do want to set that record straight. But, you know, what happened? What happened to XKO? Like, why did it not resonate with anybody?
It's because they didn't market to the casual audience. Yes, all that stuff you named was the hardcore gaming audience. But the casual market, they're on Steam. Is there any marketing on Steam for 2XKO? No. You said it's on the Riot client. Yeah. People who play League of Legends, a lot of people who play League of Legends, a lot of hardcore fans, but most casual people are on Steam, like at least on PC. Was there any marketing on actual PlayStation or Xbox? I don't know. I haven't actually turned on PlayStation to see, but was there any marketing on that? Was there any commercials in regards on like Netflix or something like that? Like if you're watching an anime on Netflix, did a 2XKO commercial pop up? Like, was there billboard signs in regards to 2XKO, or people riding the bus and you see a billboard sign of 2XKO? Like, where else was it marketed outside of like fighting game tournaments and the Game Awards? Which, yeah, you do have some casuals that watch it, but for the most part, like hardcore people tend to watch the Game Awards and stuff like that.
Until everyone got laid off. In a weird way, I almost suspect that 2XKO could spin the buzz from the layoffs into the most engagement in the game that it's ever seen.
I hope so.
It would be a weird, terrible irony if this is actually the moment that got 2XKO to succeed.
That would be crazy and cool at the same time.
First time. But what actually happened to XKO? One, was it lack of marketing? Like I mentioned before, I think this game was marketed, but of course the big issue is that the name fucking sucks. The name is fucking terrible. In every single fighting game that is based on a pop,
it is a shit name. Who was the marketing team that marketed that name to an audience that was like, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good for a fighting game. Like, because you would have had some people marketing that. You would have had a team workshopping that name. And then they would have had to take it to the market. They would have had to ask a few people, you know, what do they think of that name and stuff like that. what was your sample pool? Like, who was your sample pool that said that 2XKO was a good name for a fighting game? That's so stupid.
Popular IP, you put the name of the IP in it.
Yes.
2XKO, people were discussing.
2XKO is based off of League of Legends. Why isn't League of Legends inside the name? Like League of Legends fighting or Arcane fighting or I don't know, like League of Legends duel. Like, you know what I mean? Like something that indicate it's League of Legends.
And the Twitter post and the forum post after this, how do you pronounce 2XKO? They saw 2XKO and they're trying to like phonetically sound it out. 2EX, I saw Texco. People were trying to figure out and decipher the code of what the name is. In case you don't know, 2 times KO, 2XKO is literally a thing that can happen in the game. If you kill both characters at the same time, the announcer goes, 2XKO. It's a thing that can happen in the game. It's like naming your fighting game Perfect KO, which would be a superior name anyways, but it's named after a specific result or game mechanic that occurs in the game instead of being based on the IP. Dragon Ball Fighters has Dragon Ball in the name. Marvel vs. Capcom has Marvel and Capcom in the name. League of Legends is a massive IP. Project L was a better name than 2XKO. Project L was mysterious, and it had L, which you can then use your
Project League of Legends.
It's League of Legends, right? It had some kind of like badass energy to it, and that was just a prototype name. That was a temporary project name. Just League of Fighters. Anything else could have been better than that name. And another thing that could have went wrong: poorly estimated expectations. By the way, I'm going in order of what I think was least impactful to most impactful. Let me actually continue on the lack of marketing. Like I mentioned before, I think it was over-marketed. Influencers were brought in nonstop to market the game. You could argue that the marketing angle was wrong. They went after the core FGC audience.
Yes, it was wrong.
I was flown out to Santa Monica Studios for Riot Studios to check out the release of their latest fighting game character, and to check out the studio. And everyone there was a fighting game influencer. Everyone there was in.
Yeah, see, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. Yes, you want to enter. You have a fighting game, and you want the people who play fighting games to play it and buy it and stuff like that. Yes, those people are going to play, and they're gonna play the game. They're gonna buy the game. They're gonna spend money in the game. But you also have to market outside of there. Like, why didn't they get some of the more influential first-person shooter people, or some of the more influential League of Legends people, or some of the more influential action RPG people in there? Like, why didn't they get people from other gaming genres to come try out the game and talk about their game to their particular audience, in the hopes that they get people from different genres to come into 2XKO and try it out? Why didn't they do that? Why didn't they get people from the battle royale genre to come join? Granted, yes, I know it's a different genre, but you got to reach out. You got to spread a wide net. That's what makes Mortal Kombat so popular. Like, Mortal Kombat, yes, it's a fighting game, and it's one of the most in the grain fighting game out or whatever. But it markets to everybody. Anybody, you can have your Negro casual type player that will pick up Mortal Kombat. And when I say that, like, I mean the people that only play like Grand Theft Auto, NBA 2K, and Madden. Like, those type of people will go out and they'll buy a Mortal Kombat game because it's been marketed to them and the game just looks cool to them, so they'll go out and buy it. That's what they needed to do. They needed to reach out to your Grand Theft Auto players. They needed to reach out to your NBA 2K players and your Madden players, your Negro casual players, in order to go out and make this game financially successful.
Engaging with fighting games primarily, and for some reason there was no cross-pollination outside of the core fighting game community. So I don't know if that was for lack of access and resource, or just because they purposely chose that strategy. I'm a little confused about it. It seemed like they wanted to take over the fighting game community, and I don't think that was the strategy to go with. But I would still argue that this game did not falter due to lack of marketing. It was everywhere, especially for a fighting game player. But it was a niche within a niche within a niche, and even a lot of fighting game players rejected this game. Now, poorly estimated expectations. based on that marketing angle, I have to wonder, did they expect this game to blow up and take over the world when a lot of the marketing was for fighting game specific players and it only had 10 characters and the gameplay is very, very intimidating and steep to get into, and a active tag fighter, which is off-putting to many casual fighting game fans? Every gameplay decision they went down, aside from lack of motion controls, seemed to indicate that they were heading into a direction of being extremely niche in the fighting game space, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny space to begin with. That is fine if your expectations and goals for monetization are targeted towards that. However, this is a free-to-play product. Therefore, it's going to need a large player base to sustain it in order to keep the devs afloat and to be able to sell enough cosmetics and character tokens and all that in order to make a profit. A free-to-play game does not benefit from being niche. Other fighting games from smaller devs can have a niche release because it's a full-price game that the core audience purchases, and they can temper their expectations and budgets accordingly. So it seemed like the gameplay design and the content that was actually released and the marketing didn't align with expectations if the game, after 3 weeks releasing on console and having a successful tournament showing, did not meet expectations based on the wording in that announcement. That, to me, seems very strange. It does not align with the actions taken prior to the actual release. Like I mentioned many times, it's a niche within a niche. I think this is the biggest impact in terms of gameplay, even though I don't rate gameplay that highly on being impactful to why this game did not draw a larger audience. Active tag is crazy to go for if you want this game to be popular with fighting game players. Most fighting game players dabble with Street Fighter or Tekken or Mortal Kombat casually. Like, that's the vast majority of the audience. Dragon Ball Fighters was a tag fighter, but it wasn't an active tag fighter. And they went with the strategy of leaning into the popular IP and providing single-player content.
Like I said earlier.
To have a chance.
Yeah, because Dragon Ball Fighters did have a story mode.
I cannot believe after 10 potential years
Dragon Ball Fighting story mode was trash, but it was a story mode, and it was a new one too, a new story mode.
I'm not sure what happened internally to cause this to happen. This, to me, is the biggest issue with the core game itself. What the hell, man? 10, 12 characters? That's fucking insane. Like, that is just insane, and it shows. People do not resonate with the cast that was chosen, and their favorite League characters are not in there. If this released with 35 League characters and a lot of fan favorites were there, I guarantee you this could have blown the doors open with an announcement trailer like, hey, boom, League of Fighters, 30 of your favorite League characters here, boot up, play the game. Hey, it's a 1v1 game, but we have this 2v2 mode on the side to play with your friend because we're not sickos, we're not insane.
That sounds good.
That could have done gangbusters. That could have been $1 billion investment.
Yeah, Brian, you spitting with that one. I give you that. You spitting with that.
It just...
And that was off the dome right there. See how easy, like, if Brian was to make a game like now, I promise you, Brian F could probably make a really good fighting game. Because, like, it's actual common sense. It's actual common sense. It's just a lot of people that's ingrained inside the FGC don't have actual common sense for the casual appeal. They want their game like this. They want it to play like this, and that's all they're thinking about. They're not thinking about the more casual appeal to any fighting game.
I don't know what happened internally to stall the development, but it felt like in 2026 the game was still not finished. So, there was issues with getting to training mode and queuing for ranked matches. I would argue that there's bugs a lot of the time, so I put that into the content bucket a little bit. But the main thing is lack of characters. But the main thing overall, I think the number one most important factor is 2XKO just doesn't have it. It just doesn't have it.
What do you mean by that? Because, like, it's a fun game. It is a fun fighting game. Like, I do enjoy my time playing 2XKO. So I am curious to see where he's going with that one.
And what I mean by it is it doesn't have pizzazz. It doesn't have that X factor. If I'm here, American Idol, I'm just saying, like, you just don't have it. You know what I mean? Like, I it's almost hard to put into words, but it just doesn't have it. And a free-to-play game, a fighting game, It's going to need to generate buzz. It's going to need to be engaging to viewers. This
Hmm.
game, as
Okay.
it stands right now, I don't know if it's a combination of the art style, the gameplay with active tag,
I see where he's going with it.
the sound design, the stages, or what it is, but it tends to make viewers' eyes glaze over.
It is fun. I will say it is fun, but there is a genericness to it. Like there is a feeling of I've played a game like this before. If you played a game like Dragon Ball Fighters, there are similarities. I'm not gonna say they're the same game. They're not, but there are similarities. So it is that thing where it's like you're playing it, and yes, it's fun, but it's one of those like this feels like a game I've played before. I see what he means by that.
It tends to lead to people being very, very bored when watching the game. When you play the game, I think the game is more fun to play than to watch. I really did not like watching the game initially, and when I played it, I actually had a lot more fun playing it than I thought I would. Watching it feels very, very boring most of the time. That could have been resolved by having a lot more characters. That is a way to pad that for sure. But I think there's a lack of impact with the sound design. There's a lack of impact with the gameplay itself. It just doesn't look or feel cool to hit people, and it doesn't feel badass. Like there's nothing there to share with a friend. Like, hey, look, I did ABC launcher into Super, and it just feels impactful and feels cool. It's just not there visually with the sound design, and that means that people do not want to look at it, engage with it, or share it, and that leads to the inability to make this a viral or a game that spreads via word of mouth. So I can't describe to you exactly what it is about it, but it just doesn't have it. I think at the end of the day, no matter which way you try to dissect this, about being being an issue with the marketing, with being an issue with the content, being an issue with the expectations, it doesn't have it. And it is so important. It needs to just be like, wow, it needs to just blow your mind the moment you see it. Fighting games, first and foremost, are meant to inspire your imagination, are meant to just wow you, to make you feel like a kid.
Yeah.
It's like when you see these characters for the first time as a kid, you walk past that arcade cab, or your friend boots up Tekken and he does a fucking death fist and their health bar explodes, and you just go, whoa, what is that? They do a super for the first time. It needs to have it, and 2XKO doesn't have it. And that's about it.
Yeah, he was definitely spitting with that, and the whole it thing, like that's one of the reasons why something like Mortal Kombat sells so well. That's why, like, for example, when MK11 came out, Crushing Blows was so cool. The Fatal Blow system was so cool. Now, gameplay wise, you have a lot of hardcore people that hates those mechanics. Casual wise, people love seeing those mechanics. People love seeing somebody catch a crushing blow and seeing that animation of the bones breaking and stuff like that. People love seeing people get hit with a fatal blow and seeing like the gruesome brutality of like somebody's getting their eyes gouged out or their throat slit and stuff like that. People who actually play Mortal Kombat don't really care for the fatalities and the brutalities like that, most of them at least. But the casual people love seeing a brutality. They love seeing a fatality. They get hyped for that stuff. It looks cool as hell. There's a reason why when they introduce, especially like Mortal Kombat games, they always show off the fatalities and how cool they are, or the animalities, or the brutalities, or the stage fatalities and stuff like that, because those are cool things. Those are the it factors for those Mortal Kombat games. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can see that. Like 2XKO, fun game to play, but there is a genericness to it. There is a genericness to it. So I see what he means by that. And that's basically it for the video. I think Brian F did a great job with this video. It was a lot of information. He really went into a deep dive about it. This video must have taken him a long time to set up and plan for and prepare for, because he really did his thing with this video. This was a really good video. Definitely go check out this video. Support it. Support Brian F. Like, his channel is like really blowing up. He's doing stuff like trash talk and stuff like that. Check out his trash talk. He's doing his thing. He's been in the FGC for a while. He's been, and I know him from like Street Fighter, but he's been doing his thing. Definitely check him out, and like, share, subscribe to this video. Check out some of my other videos, because I'm talking my talk, bro. Like, everything I'm saying has been coming true. I've been playing fighting games for decades now, over 3 decades now. I've been playing fighting games. I didn't see it all. I didn't experience it all. I've been a gamer even longer than that. So I know stuff. I can just see something and tell, like, oh, whether that's going to be good, whether that's not good, whether when the whole like FGC or the community is saying one thing, I'd be like, that's not the reason why the game is failing. The reason why the game is failing is because of this. And sure enough, that's usually what it turns out to be. So, like, for example, when MK1, people were saying all this other stuff why MK1 was failing, and since day one, since before the game came out, like, I was a little skeptical about the cameo system, but I gave it a chance. I still wanted to give it a chance. But even when I played it, I was like, the cameo system isn't really it. You know what I mean? The game does have a level of fun to it, but the cameo system isn't really it. You have everybody else in the Mortal Kombat community saying, oh, the game's going to fail because it doesn't have the crossplay, because the invasions mode is trash, because of everything else other than the fact that the general audience for Mortal Kombat didn't want a cameo system in there. Like, they were all saying that same stuff, but I was the only one out here like, yo, it's because of the cameo system. Like, most people who play Mortal Kombat don't want to deal with a cameo system. They were raised to play a tag fighter and assist-based fighter. Like, people who grew up playing Mortal Kombat grew up playing a 1v1 fighter. So, but yeah, that's basically it, man. Check out my channel, check out my videos. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And remember, your life is a fantasy, man. Let's get it.
To them young boys in the hood with big dreams of being superstars. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't, but you gotta work super hard. To the older man who feels his life is over cause he wasted his standing on corners. One thing I learned about the streets, it's never too late for a come up. I was told before that I couldn't do it. I remember being told by my own peeps not to rap, and singing in my hood wasn't popular, but I got respect for it cause I was a beast. Facts. If you got a dream, you gotta stay committed, you can get it, but you gotta be a beast, you can't slack for a minute. Remember this, if you remember nothing else.